For most of your working life, your paycheck was never really a loan. It arrived on a Friday, then the rent took its part. The grocery store took its part. The car payment, the phone bill, the subscription you forgot about. The credit card balance that somehow did not shrink. One by one, small claims gathered around your income before you even touched it. And the strange part is, this is not how most people imagine losing money. They imagine one bad investment, one scam, one reckless purchase. Not coffee, not delivery fees, not a payment plan split into 4 pieces, but a quiet machine built out of ordinary days. A machine that makes money feel available at the exact moment it is already spoken for. Then came the modern version of the trap. Wages went into the account. Prices moved faster. Credit filled the gap. Buy now, pay later made the gap feel painless. Apps turned spending into a tap. Banks turned waiting into fees. And households learned to survive by borrowing from next month. Then, the month after that. Until the future became a place already crowded with bills. The numbers are not dramatic in the way a crash is dramatic. They are colder than that. In the United States, credit card debt has climbed past the $1 trillion mark. Delinquencies have risen, especially among younger borrowers. Surveys keep finding the same uncomfortable pattern. Many people earning decent money still say they could not cover a sudden emergency without borrowing or selling something. Not because they are stupid, not because they are lazy, not because every person suddenly forgot how math works, but because the money system around ordinary life changed. It became smoother, quieter, more automatic. It learned to remove friction from spending and add friction to escaping debt. What happened was not simple. For decades, people were told the answer was discipline. Make a budget, skip the latte, work harder, and maybe that helps, maybe it matters. But it does not explain why a person can get a raise and still feel poorer 6 months later. It does not explain why a full-time worker can pay every bill on time and still be one emergency away from collapse. So the real question is not, where did my money go? The real question is darker. Who got to it before you did? And if you looked closely at your last paycheck, your last grocery receipt, and your last credit card statement, what would you find? First, a spending problem, an income problem, or a system designed to make both look like your fault. By this point, the household looks completely normal. A paycheck comes in, rent goes out, groceries go on the card. The phone bill, the car payment, the insurance premium, the subscriptions that feel too small to matter. Nothing here looks dramatic, not a collapse, not a crisis, just the shape of modern life. But this is where the mechanism gets strange. For decades, ordinary people survived with a very simple set of money tools. Work steadily, spend carefully, keep some cash in the bank, use credit when needed, maybe buy a house, maybe contribute to a retirement account, maybe trust that wages would slowly pull ahead over time. And for a long time, that worked well enough. Not because it was perfect, not because people were financial geniuses, but because the surrounding world gave them room. Housing was cheaper relative to income. Interest rates could be tolerated. Food and energy were not swallowing the same share of the paycheck. A small mistake did not always turn into a long-term trap. Then the ground changed. Prices rose faster than the habits built to handle them. Credit card interest moved from annoying to predatory. Rents climbed into territory that used to belong to mortgages. Cars became financed, like houses. And the quiet disaster was that people kept using the same tools, because those tools had worked before. That is the counterintuitive part. Sometimes a money habit does not fail because it is foolish. It fails because it was designed for a world that no longer exists. The old budget, the old emergency fund target, the old idea of just work harder. They can all look responsible while they are slowly losing power. You can see it in the data. In the United States, a large share of households report that a surprise expense of only a few $100s would be difficult to cover without borrowing or selling something. Credit card balances have pushed to record levels. Delinquency rates have been rising, especially among younger borrowers and lower-income households. This is not one person being careless. This is a system where millions of people are being forced to use debt as a bridge between yesterday's wages and today's prices. And the strange part is, many of them still look stable from the outside. They still have jobs, they still have apartments. They still tap their card and walk out with groceries. But under the surface, their options are shrinking. The raise does not reach them before the rent increase does. The tax refund is already spent before it arrives. The emergency fund becomes a revolving door. Money comes in, money goes out, and less of it belongs to them every month. What happened was not simple. It was not just inflation, not just bad spending, not just housing. It was the combination: higher fixed costs, more expensive borrowing, weaker wage power, more automated payments, more small leaks. And once a household becomes cut off from extra cash, the way an island is cut off from the mainland, recovery becomes harder. There is no room to move, no easy category to cut, no clean way to restart. That is how a family can survive for years and still be one bill away from breaking. The lesson is uncomfortable. The money strategy that kept people alive in one economy can quietly destroy them in the next. So the real question is not whether you are disciplined. Maybe you are. Maybe you always have been. The real question is this: are you using a financial survival plan built for the world you actually live in now, or for a world that disappeared years ago? Tell me in the comments, which bill made you realize the old rules were gone? That image was always wrong. The person falling behind is not always reckless, not lazy, not stupid. Sometimes they are doing almost everything the old rulebook told them to do. They go to work, they check the price tag, they skip the extra coffee. They wait one more month before replacing the phone. Then the rent renewal arrives. Then the insurance bill. Then the grocery receipt that looks normal. Until you compare it with the same basket from 2 years ago. And the strange part is, effort can still lose. Because money is not only about discipline, it is also about structure. A paycheck is not just a paycheck, it is a system of timing. It lands every 2 weeks or once a month, while bills arrive whenever they want. Rent does not care that your bonus comes later. The credit card company does not care that overtime got cut. The utility bill does not care that food prices moved quietly, item by item, until the weekly shop became a second car payment. For years, a lot of working people were built for survival. They knew how to stretch a dollar. They knew which store had cheaper eggs, which gas station was lower on Tuesday, which subscription had to be canceled before the trial ended. They became strong in small ways, strong at waiting, strong at saying no, strong at turning one dinner into 2 meals. But what happened was not simple. The financial environment changed faster than the habits did. Housing took a larger share of income. Cars became rolling debt contracts. Medical bills became landmines. Childcare in some cities started to look like a second rent payment. And credit filled the gap, not as a luxury, but as a bridge. A bridge from Thursday to payday, from the emergency to the next statement, from one surprise to the next. The data keeps pointing in the same direction. In recent Federal Reserve surveys, a large share of American adults say they would struggle to cover a $400 emergency with cash on hand. Other surveys keep finding that many households earning solid salaries still describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck. That sounds contradictory, but it is not. It means the income looks decent from a distance, while the monthly obligations are packed tightly around it. This is the counterintuitive mechanism. The person with the bigger income does not always feel safer. Sometimes they just qualify for bigger fixed costs. A larger apartment, a larger car note, a larger insurance premium, a larger lifestyle that was not chosen in one dramatic moment, but accumulated quietly through normal decisions. Not this one bill, not that one purchase, but the whole pattern stacked over time until the paycheck is already spoken for before it arrives. Then there is the network effect. 2 people can earn the same salary and live in the same city, but their money lives are not the same. One has family nearby who can watch a child for 2 hours, a friend who knows about a job opening, a coworker who explains the better health plan, a cousin who has a spare room during a bad month. The other person has to buy every solution at market price. Childcare, moving help, emergency rides, short-term cash, advice. That difference does not show up on a pay stub, but it decides who survives the shock. This is why financial isolation is expensive. Smaller support networks make every problem heavier. If your car breaks down and you have no one to call, the repair is only the first cost. The missed shift is the second. The late fee is the third. The higher credit balance is the fourth. The damage spreads quietly, mechanically, and this is where many people misread the story. They look at someone's bank account and assume it reveals character. Maybe they spend too much. Maybe they failed to plan. Maybe they deserve the stress. But often, the account is showing something colder: timing, fixed costs, weak bargaining power, and a lack of backup when one thing goes wrong. The modern money game rewards people with buffers: cash buffers, time buffers, social buffers, information buffers. If you have them, one bad week is annoying. If you do not, one bad week becomes a chain reaction. So look at your own last 7 days. The small transactions, the automatic bills, the money you spent because there was no cheaper option in that exact moment. Which one is really draining you? Bad habits or a system that makes every mistake compound? Comment with the bill you think is secretly eating the most of your paycheck. Then came the difficult years. Not dramatic at first, not a market crash on television, not a banker standing in front of a marble building, just groceries costing a little more, rent renewing a little higher, the electric bill arriving with a number that feels wrong, Gas, insurance, phone plans, school lunches, medicine, all moving upward while the paycheck stays almost the same. And at the same time, the climate of money kept changing. Interest rates went up, credit card APRs climbed, savings rates improved for people who already had cash, but debt became heavier for people who did not. Inflation cooled in the headlines, but the prices on the shelf did not politely walk back to where they came from. They stayed there, they settled in, they became the new floor. That is the part people miss. A household does not usually collapse from one bill. It gets smaller first. Its options shrink. The emergency fund disappears. The second income becomes necessary. Then the overtime becomes necessary. Then the credit card becomes normal. Families become more isolated financially, not because they are careless, but because every month leaves less room to adapt. And the data keeps whispering the same thing. The Federal Reserve has reported for years that a large share of American adults would struggle to cover a sudden $400 expense without borrowing, selling something, or missing another payment. Credit card balances have pushed above $1 trillion. Delinquencies, especially among younger borrowers and lower-income households, have been rising. This is not a single disaster. It is competition, cost pressure, high interest, thin savings, and shrinking margins all pressing at once. What happened was not simple. People were not wiped out by one bad choice. They were pushed toward financial extinction by a system where the small weaknesses compound. A late fee creates interest. Interest creates a larger minimum payment. A larger minimum payment reduces cash. Less cash means the next surprise goes back on the card. Not this bill, not that purchase, but the chain between them. And the strange part is, some of the most dangerous money problems can barely be seen. Now look at the modern equivalent of that one tiny bone. A single charge on your statement. $9.99, $14.99, $23 for an app you forgot you downloaded, a protection plan, a delivery fee, a service fee, a payment split into 4 easy parts, so small it does not feel like debt. It sits there quietly in the palm of your financial life, almost too small to respect. But when you pull the DNA from it, the result is unsettling. It is not just entertainment, not just convenience, not just inflation. It is something else, a hidden branch of your budget that has been growing in the background while you were focused on rent, food, and the paycheck. Since the rise of subscription billing, automatic renewals, buy now, pay later plans, and app-based spending, people have stopped seeing money leave in big visible moments. The old system hurt quickly. You handed over cash. You felt the loss. The new system is softer. It breaks the pain into pieces. It turns spending into background noise. Maybe it is only $12. Maybe it is only one extra delivery order. Maybe it is only one payment plan for shoes, one for a phone, one for a chair, one for a trip you already took. But the financial shadow is enormous. A subscription you forgot is not about the subscription. It is about memory being outsourced. A minimum payment is not about affordability. It is about delay being sold as relief. A loyalty app is not about rewards. It is about making the purchase feel like progress. You are not always buying more because you want more. Sometimes you are buying more because every company around you has learned how to make the cost feel smaller than it is. That is the counterintuitive mechanism. The bill that destroys you is rarely the one that looks scary. It is often the one designed to look harmless. A mortgage looks serious, so people read it. A car loan looks serious, so people negotiate it. But the little charges slide through because they do not feel like decisions. They feel like weather, and once enough of them gather, the household starts to resemble those declining populations from history. Less diversity, fewer buffers, fewer paths out. One income source, one checking account, one credit card carrying the pressure, one emergency away from borrowing. Then the numbers start to close in. If your rent takes 35 or 40% of your income, the rest of the budget has to perform perfectly. If food, transport, insurance, debt payments, and utilities take another large share, there is no real margin left. And without margin, even a normal month becomes a test. A tire replacement is not a tire replacement. It is a debt event. A dental bill is not a dental bill. It is a payment plan decision. A birthday, a school fee, a family visit, all of them become financial weather, quiet, constant, reshaping the environment. And this is why two people earning the same salary can live in completely different realities. One has low fixed costs, no high interest debt, and cash reserves. The other has rent pressure, credit balances, childcare, insurance, and automatic payments stacked under the surface. On paper, they earn the same. In real life, One has oxygen, and the other is breathing through a straw. So here's the question that matters. If I gave you your own bank statement and circled one tiny charge, one forgotten payment, one line so small you normally ignore it, would it reveal nothing? Or would it reveal the hidden species living inside your money? Drop the smallest charge on your statement that somehow turned into a bigger problem. Then look at the money you barely notice. Not the rent, not the car payment, not the big dramatic bill that makes you sit down before opening the app, but the small charges. The subscription that renewed quietly, the delivery fee that looked harmless, the processing line on a phone bill, the interest that appears after a grace period you did not really understand. That is where modern money leaves its fingerprints. A household can look normal from the outside and still be carrying a hidden financial inheritance. Maybe not from parents, maybe not from poverty, but from systems that learned how to live inside ordinary paychecks. Credit scores, overdraft fees, variable interest, buy now, pay later plans, minimum payments that feel like relief, but function like a slow tax on future income. And the strange part is this: a tiny mechanism can decide whether a person survives a bad month. Research from the Federal Reserve has shown for years that a large share of American adults would struggle to cover a sudden emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. The exact number moves from year to year, but the pattern stays. One broken tire, one dental bill, one missed shift, and the financial body starts to fail in thin air. People often think wealth is built only through big decisions. A better job, a cheaper house, a lucky investment. But many families are shaped by small, inherited rules they never chose. One person has access to a low-interest credit union loan. Another only gets a payday lender. One family learns how to use a credit card as a tool. Another meets it first as a trap. Same grocery store, same gas pump, different financial atmosphere. And when the world shifts, thin margins do not hold. Inflation does not have to double your life to break your plan. It only has to raise food, insurance, rent, and electricity. At the same time, your raise comes in late or does not come at all. A budget that looked stable at the start of the year can become unstable without one reckless purchase. What happened was not simple. It was not laziness, not weakness, but compression. Then there are the financial islands. A person living in a small town with one employer, one major grocery option, and limited banking access does not experience money the same way as someone in a competitive city with 5 job offers and 3 low-fee banks. Isolation changes the shape of choices. In biology, islands can make large animals shrink and small animals grow. In money, isolated markets can make basic needs more expensive and bad options feel normal. You see it in rent. You see it in food deserts. You see it in rural banking gaps. You see it when a person pays more to cash a paycheck because they do not have the account balance, address stability, or trust required to use the cheaper system. That is the uncomfortable part. The most expensive version of money is often sold to the people with the least of it. So maybe the question is not, why don't people save more? Maybe the better question is, how much of your paycheck is being eaten by rules you did not design? Look at one bill today, just one, find the smallest fee on it. Then ask yourself, if that fee appeared every month for 10 years, who would it make richer? You or someone you never meet? The bill gets larger, not all at once, not in a dramatic collapse, but quietly, line by line inside the life of an ordinary person. A streaming subscription renews, rent moves up by a small percentage, groceries cost a little more than last month. The paycheck arrives, and for one day the account looks safe. Then the automatic payments begin: phone, insurance, credit card minimum. Buy now, pay later, maybe a delivery order, maybe gas. Maybe one emergency that was not really an emergency, just life arriving early. And the strange part is, most people do not go broke because one massive disaster hits them. They go broke because a small financial island runs out of room. That is the mechanism nobody likes to talk about. A household does not need a total catastrophe to disappear under debt. Sometimes it only needs a thin savings cushion, a rising cost structure, and one new pressure arriving at the wrong time. A repair, a medical bill, a week of reduced hours, an interest rate reset. Then the whole system has no space left to absorb shock. So the obvious answer is to say, just earn more. But that falls apart quickly. Plenty of high earners are still trapped. Plenty of smart people still carry credit card balances. Plenty of disciplined workers still feel poor 2 days after payday. Income matters, yes, but income alone is not protection. If every dollar is already assigned before it lands, what separates stable households from fragile ones is often harder to measure. It is not intelligence, not motivation, not even the size of the paycheck by itself. It is the structure around the money. People who survive financially tend to build systems across time. They do not just spend from one month to the next. They create buffers. They move knowledge, they compare prices. They refinance before panic. They automate savings before emotion gets a vote. They talk to people who know things they do not know. A tax move here, a lower insurance premium there, a second income stream, a skill that travels. When one part of their financial life gets hit, the lesson does not die there. It has already moved into the rest of the system. That is why two people can earn the same salary and live in completely different realities. One is locked inside the next bill. The other has options. Maybe not wealth yet, maybe not freedom yet, but distance from the edge. And in money, distance from the edge is everything. So here is the uncomfortable question. If your next paycheck came 1 week late, would your financial system bend or would it break? Comment with one word, bend or break. Look at the ordinary places first. The grocery receipt, the rent payment, the paycheck that arrives, gets divided and disappears before the month has really begun. Not into one villain, not into one bad habit, not into one single strategy that will save you. The uncomfortable truth is slower than that. Your money is being shaped by timing, location, interest rates, inflation, taxes, wages, and the number of months you can survive without panic. Then comes the strange part. People want a clean answer. Buy this, cut that, invest here. But personal finance does not work like a straight ladder. A high salary can still collapse under debt. A careful saver can still fall behind inflation. A small investor can still win if time, low fees, and consistency stay on their side long enough. What happened was not simple. Households that looked strong vanished after one medical bill, one layoff, one adjustable rate mortgage, one business downturn. Others survived, not because they were smarter, but because they had cash reserves, lower fixed costs, family support, or bought assets before prices ran away. The Federal Reserve's own surveys have shown how many families struggle to cover even a modest emergency expense. That is not a personality flaw. That is a system where small timing differences become life-changing money differences. And this is the final point. There is no early version of a rich person inside every broke person, just waiting to evolve. There are different financial lives, built under different pressures. Some people are surviving on wages, some on assets, some on credit, some on luck they mistake for genius. So the move is not to worship one strategy. It is to build a life that can outlast bad timing, lower the bills that trap you, keep cash before you chase status, own assets when you can, avoid debt that makes one accident fatal. Maybe wealth is not about being the smartest person in the room. Maybe it is about not being the branch that gets cut off first. Now, be honest in the comments. What is the one bill, habit, or debt that is quietly deciding your future right now? That is what debt does when income is already stretched. It lowers the oxygen.